Good morning. I'm Teresa Kittridge with 100 Rural Women, and we are here today to visit with Tracey Chase. Tracey is the Adult Education Manager and Regional Transition Coordinator at Arrowhead Economic Opportunity Agency. Um, Tracey has been active with adult education for over 29 years, and she's been the Marcell Township Clerk since 2016 and an election judge in Marcell Township. And it just so happens that's where I live and where 100 Rural Women is based. So welcome, Tracey. I'm
Thank
happy
you.
to have you here with us this morning. We've been doing interviews and webinars, and our whole goal around this is to lift up amazing rural women that are doing great work. And just want to thank you for your community service and your commitment to rural. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Tracey. Where are you from? What do you do for work?
Oh, okay. I am from the area. I grew up in Bowstring, and I'm now part of the Marcell Township. My husband and I and daughter live just on the edge of the township. I've been part of adult education first as an instructor and now as the manager with AEOA. And like you said, for 29 years, it doesn't seem possible. And one of the things when I was teaching, I would always talk with the students about the need to volunteer and to engage in the community and to move forward with some of those systems. And it got to the point where it was kind of like maybe I needed to walk the talk that I was doing. That I would always say, "Oh, yes, you need to do this," and then when somebody would ask me, I'd be like, "No, I don't think so. I don't have the time." And so I was contacted by Diane Copens, who was a supervisor for the township, and the clerk had left, and they didn't have anybody, and would I do it? And so I jumped in with both feet. And when you are a clerk, part of your responsibility is the elections for the township. And so that's how I kind of got involved with, elections and being a township judge.
Wonderful. And just for folks, for just a little geographic information, when you think of Marcell Township, we are about 90 miles south of the Canadian border and about 4 hours north of Minneapolis is probably the best part. And Tracey, what's our population? Are we at about 467?
451, I think,
51. Okay.
something
Okay.
like that. But we will be having a new census count. So,
Right.
yeah, it'll
And,
be a
and and just another geographic piece for folks information, a township is 36 square miles. So that's when you sort of think about townships in the state of Minnesota. So today we're really here to talk about election day voting. And as Tracey said, she's been an election judge as part of her work. And I was an election judge this spring also, but neither one of us will be election judges this election because we're both on the ballot. Tracey for city clerk and me, I'm going to be on the ballot for hospital board. So it's a great opportunity to just have Tracey bring her knowledge to us today and talk a little bit about voting on election day. So Tracey, we talked a little bit about you becoming an election judge, but if you could talk, maybe expand on that a little bit more, and can you discuss the roles and responsibilities of an election judge?
Sure. So, in regards to the clerk, one of the things that I end up having to do is, of course, to find judges to serve during the elections. And as the clerk, we have the process from posting that positions are open, having candidates file their affidavits for candidacy. I'm a ex officio notary, so I have to I'm able to stamp that. I get that information to the courthouse to say who is actually going to be running. And then in regards to the election judges, we have training. Normally, the court elections administrator will put on in-person trainings for election judges. Normally, it's every 2 years that they do that, and it discusses the roles and responsibilities of judges, whether you are the person who's at the intake or the person giving the ballot. I mean, so there's a lot of training that goes into it. So when a person becomes a judge, they have a little more knowledge of the expectations for the position. Um, Other times, there's also training that can be tapped into that's online. So if a person isn't able to be in person, they can tap into it through the Secretary of State's website.
So when you think about election judges, so what do they do? What do they do on election day, for example? What's their
Okay. So election judges do everything from when a person comes in to vote, um, they have to be registered. If a person isn't registered, then typically our head judge will register that individual. You will need um, like a driver's license. It can be expired, but showing of who you are and where you live. Otherwise, you can have a picture ID and like a bill, electric bill or something like that, that you need to bring. Or if you do not have that, say if you're newer to the community, um, in a small community, we actually know most people and a lot of newcomers. And so we can even be attesting that, yes, you are a resident of the community. Once you have done that, then you will end up going and being able to vote. And so you also, when you come in, if you are a registered voter, you say who you are. We can look into either on a paper roster, or this year we now have poll pads. So we will find who you are and you will sign that you are who you are. You are a resident of the township and you have a legal right to vote.
lovely? And when we think about it, for future reference, how do people become election judges?
Just let me know. That would be wonderful. Um, because this year, with COVID, it was getting down to the wire of, am I going to have enough judges? And so I even have now the treasurer of the township is recently was trained, so he is able to help out too. And I have 6 judges. Um, on a primary, when there's fewer people coming through, we don't have to, because of our size of our township, we don't have to have that many. But for our general election, I do have the 6, because in addition to coming into the building and voting, we also have an option of curbside voting.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit more about what curbside voting is? That's a good thing to
Okay.
visit about.
Curbside voting is when people come, they do not have to come into the building. They can remain in their car. And we will have 2 judges, one from each party affiliation, go out to the car, find out who it is. We have to make sure that, yes, they are a registered voter. If they're not, then we have to go through that process. And so if they are registered, we bring them the ballot. They can fill it out. They put it into a sheet and we bring it into the building and put it into our machine to be counted. But there has to be party affiliation for Democrat and Republican.
And to that point, can you expand on that a little bit? So you have 6 judges. Is it half and half, or how does that work with party
Right.
designation?
I try to get half and half. Some people are independents, but we just don't want to have it weighed where we have 6 Democrats and no Republicans, or 6 Republicans and no Democrats. We want it to be evenly as balanced as possible.
And for advice for folks that live around the state or might live in other states, is the best course of action really contacting your county to find out?
Yes.
Is that probably
Yes.
the best point
Exactly.
of contact
Yes.
for people who might live in different areas, right?
Right. And I know that with the county, the election administrator, she also has a list of people who do not have a polling site to be a judge, but want to be a judge. And so you can pick from, the list and contact them to see if they would be willing to be a judge at your location.
Oh, that's an interesting point too, because I think of like where we are here in northern Minnesota, we are surrounded by some townships that do mail-in. They
Yes.
do full mail-in. So if somebody from another township wanted to help, they could come over and and work in the
Right.
township, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yep.
that's a good.
Exactly. And actually, that's what we do have. We have people, in addition to Marcell Township residents, we have people from other townships who are mail-in ballot people, and we have people on our as judges who have been with the practice of judging for many, many years. Good group of people who have a lot of knowledge.
No, that's wonderful. And when we think about this election, do you think it's going to be different, than others with COVID? And how do you see it could be different?
It will be different in regards to setup,
Mhm.
because we have to be socially distanced and masks. That for this election, I purchased two um, mobile like voting booths. They are hard plastic, easy to clean, so that way after a person uses it, we are able to wipe it down. Um, and I have purchased masks and also the shields for the judges to wear. We have masks available for individuals coming in to vote who do not have that. We have hand sanitizer. So as far as the layout of how we are doing things, it's different because we have to be cognizant of COVID. And I know that with the election administrator at the county, she had made mention that in Marcell Township already over half of the people have either done, the absentee ballots or have come into the courthouse and have voted early. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on election day.
Yeah, and to that point, what if, I think that's, if people receive their ballot absentee, but now have decided, you know what, I want to go in and vote in person on election day. I feel more confident in that. How does that process work when they come into the Marcell Township Hall?
Yep. So if they have requested an absentee ballot and they actually have the absentee ballot in hand, what they end up doing is bringing it with them, and we put it into what is known as a spoiled ballot, and make notation that somebody brought an absentee ballot in, and then they are able to vote. And so that way the courthouse then can account for the ballot that was sent out to them, that it's in the spoiled, and that they have actually voted in person. If a person has actually voted, mailed it back, and are wondering, have I, has the courthouse received the ballot? There's a barcode on your envelope. So when you end up sending it back, if it reaches the courthouse will scan that barcode. And so if you're wondering, you can contact the courthouse and ask them if they have received your ballot. If they haven't received your ballot yet, and because we're coming down to the wire, it's next Tuesday, they could come in and vote. And each of the polling places will know if an individual's ballot has been received at the courthouse, because on our roster, it will have an AB behind the person's name, which means absentee ballot. So if the courthouse has received it and have logged it, we will have record that they voted.
Okay, so that, because I think also, in Minnesota too, we had a new court ruling last night on counting. So I wonder, I wonder if people are going to be nervous about that. So that's great. So they can come in and say, I mailed it, but now I'm nervous that it
Yes.
won't get there in time. And you'll be able
Yep.
to double check that for them. And in fact, if the
Yes.
county hasn't received it, then they can vote that day and assure their votes counted.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
And I do know that, there's been many, many ballots coming into the courthouse. A couple of weeks ago when I was there was like 4 large boxes
Right.
of ballots coming in. And so, this kind of, it's kind of testing our postal system a little bit. And
Right.
so if you're a little nervous about it, better to contact the courthouse, see if they have received it. If they haven't, it's best to come in and vote. And then we can log, that Mary Smith came in, said she had requested a ballot, mailed it back, but she doesn't know, and we'll kind of log that. And again, there's those checks and balances where the courthouse will be able to see if a person voted in Marcell Township, they will not be counted if something came through the mail then,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. So there's a good system of checks and balances, which I think
Yes,
is very important for people to feel confident in
exactly.
in our voting. And just this is just a quick question that just came to my brain too. So Tracy, you have people vote all day. What happens at the end of the day um, at that township level? How do the votes, get tallied up, and then do you take them to the courthouse? Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that process.
Good question. So every ballot that is fed into the machine, there is a counter. And so, some people will talk about, oh, goodness sakes, making changes, and people, oh, is that really what the count is and all that? We can't change that count. We run then several tapes, and we also have it on a flash drive, what those count totals are. So when a person votes, if they vote Democrat, um, it will tally one for the Democrat. If they vote one Republican, it tallies one for Republican. And there's even checks and balances um, in the poll places, because what the machine says, if it says there's been 35 voters, then we need to make sure in our logs that there's only 35 voters. So, there is those checks and balances even at the polling place. So then at the end of the night, we run our receipts or our tapes that show every office that has had votes for, and if somebody has 0 votes, it shows 0 votes. We run tapes, we collect all the ballots, we then put them into a case, we lick an envelope and all of that. So all of the information then is secure, and the head judge and the clerk bring that information down to the courthouse. And we give that up to the courthouse. And then what they do is they go through all of the information that we have. They take the receipts, and double check that, yes, everything is the way it's supposed to be. And then they take that flash drive that has all of the information of every person who has voted, and they not their names, because of course, we don't have a name connected to how they vote. But they put that in, and they double check off of the flash drive of making sure that all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, and that the votes have been done what needed to be done. So it's a very lengthy process, because all of the polling places are coming in as soon as the polls close at 8. They gather up all of their information, they go to the courthouse to give it up. And I have to say, sometimes it may be 11:30, midnight before you get home, because you're having to wait your turn to go through all of the information.
That's great information, because I think it is I think people have a much higher interest in the process this year. So it's really nice to be
Yes,
able to talk through the details.
yes.
And do you have any tips or suggestions for election day voters in rural Minnesota, or in the
You
country,
know,
I guess?
right. If you do not know for sure if your ballot has been received, call the courthouse, double check. If they haven't received it, come out and vote. Every vote counts. And it's really important to be able to put your vote in, because that's kind of deciding of how our country will go. So vote.
Wonderful. And Tracy and I were talking a little bit before we got started here today, and just up in our neighborhood, in House District 5A, last time around, John Purcell, who's a state representative, I was trying to remember the exact number, but I know it was under 10 votes. So when you think about that, we've had some pretty big recounts in Minnesota over the last 10 years, and they've been tight for for US Senate, for governor. So your vote does count. It truly does. And I just really want to thank you today, Tracy, because I think this is great information to share with people. And I'm with you. People need to get out and vote. Voices matter. For more information, we'll have this up on our website also. You know, you can contact the Secretary of State. On the Secretary of State's website, and you can find where you vote, you can find your county, all those pieces. So that's a wealth of knowledge. We'll have that link up there. We're going to post this recording to social media and to our website for more information. And I just want to thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for your service here in our community. So
Thank you.
so much,
I
Tracy.
have to say it's an interesting but enjoyable experience. So
I love it.
thanks.